Still might have that too.
I don't waste breath on an enemy. No room for negative energy. Nah. I hear them talking, don't get to me. Karma gon' catch up eventually.
Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
Nah. I hear them talking, don't get to me. Karma gon' catch up eventually.
Go ahead and snap. All right, cool. All right, Vikings fans, welcome in to the Load the Box post-game show. I am your freshly clean-shaven host, Jordan Hawthorne. I am joined by a little bit more of a scruffy-looking person named Jack Day. Jack, tough loss, but oddly feels like a moral victory. I'm not a moral victories guy, but I feel good after that game. How are you feeling, man?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat as you are. I mean, neither you or I expected too much out of this game. We both predicted the team to lose. Obviously, Justin Jefferson goes out and has an absolute day. Dalvin Cook had an absolute day. So I think there were some positives. Gary Kubiak did a much better job at getting the ball in the hands of his best playmakers, and we saw today that Justin Jefferson is indeed one of those better playmakers on this offense.
Yeah, really excited to see him continue to grow. I think you really hammered it home last week. Hey, we spent a high draft pick on this guy. Like, get him on the field, get him the ball. He's looked good when he's gotten it, and today I believe he is still leading the NFL in wide receiving with that 175 yards of receiving. And I think Dalvin was leading the last time I checked in rushing, too, at like 181 yards. So even though we have the number one wide receiver, we have the number one running back, we still fall short to the Tennessee Titans. A lot of people are blaming coaching. A lot of people are blaming Cousins, although Jadeveon Clowney kind of saved Cousins, I think, head this week because a lot of Vikings fans were going to be demanding it on a stake after that just terrible pick. That should have been a pick six, but of course there was a blindside block that kind of took that away. So, I'm trying to think of kind of everything that happened in the game. The Vikings looked competent for the first time this season. Against Green Bay, didn't look good. Against the Colts, they looked even worse. And it kind of did feel like, last week we came on air and we're talking about Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. It felt like that was the direction the season was going. After we played the Titans, who were in the AFC Championship game last year, after we played them the way we did, it's starting to look like this is going to be, and I text you this, probably a 6 to 7 win team. If the defense can really kick it back into even being like average, then I think we're looking, maybe at 9 win. I mean, I'm getting a little bit of hope back, and that's dangerous when you're a Vikings fan because they will quickly snatch it up. But Jack, I'll let you go ahead and give your miniature breakdown of the game, and then we can talk about game balls and such.
Yeah, it was a kind of a weird game. I still, like you said, I just have kind of a weird feeling in my stomach after that one. Obviously, the only loss to, like you said, the defending, I guess, reigning AFC. They weren't the AFC champions, but made it to that AFC championship game, had a game with the Kansas City Chiefs, and there weren't many teams that were able to do that, and they beat the Ravens last year, and no one thought anyone was going to slow the Ravens down last year, and then they did that, and they utilized Derrick Henry, and I mean, Derrick Henry, although Dalvin Cook had a better day than Derrick Henry today, he still had 26 carries for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think going into this game, one of the biggest things that we feared was just that lack of a push up front. And I think we saw that today. Obviously, we both expected that. But I did see some plays. I know Eric Kendricks has been phenomenal on outside run plays. He was phenomenal in coverage. He's been phenomenal in coverage, and he was phenomenal in coverage today as well. And we saw him there were some big boy tackles. I think I tweeted it out during the game at one point, but he made a couple big boy tackles on Derrick Henry where he came downhill. He he found his gap, the right gap, and he laid a pop on one of the hardest guys to tackle in the entire NFL. So I think just my takeaway on the defensive side of the ball, I've said this to numerous people. I have several people texting me throughout the game, which is a blessing and a curse. It's fun that people want to talk to me during the game, but it's also at the same time, it's like, you know what, I'm trying to watch a football game. But the defense is missing 5 of their starters, and arguably I think you can say that they're missing, I know for sure they're missing probably the most important player on that defense in Danielle Hunter. Unique Ngakoue had another strip sack today, which was a great play, but then I know he kind of stumbled after he made the play, but he was kind of dancing before anyone on the Vikings went for the football, which was kind of frustrating. But it's good seeing him get back in the backfield, kind of get back into the swing of things, what we were so used to seeing him do in Jacksonville, and he's doing it for the Vikings now, which is a good sign. Read something, Will Ragetz, actually, friend of the show, tweeted something out saying that it doesn't look like Danielle Hunter is going to be back next week, which it's frustrating to see, but you don't want to rush a guy with a neck injury. We've seen what has happened. We've seen one linger here with Mike Hughes, and he didn't play today. Cameron Dancer was out. Obviously, Anthony Barr didn't play. And then you have Michael Pierce not stuffing up the middle, obviously, opting out earlier this season. But the defense, it wasn't great. They let up 31 points, obviously, but at the same time, I think there was 6 field goals, so they didn't let Tennessee get in the end zone. They bended, but they did not break. I think that's the best way to describe this defensive effort. It wasn't great by any means. It wasn't what we were used to seeing. But I'm happy with how the defense played, just because there's so much youth in that secondary, and we're lacking legitimate starters. I mean, DJ Wanham, our 4th-round pick that I know Andre Patterson loves, and he thinks he's going to turn him into a good pass rusher, but I don't think he's ready to be playing quite yet, and I don't think it was in the Vikings' plan. I think he came in when Odenabo actually went out of the game for a little bit, but then he came back in. But switching over to the offensive side of the ball, that's kind of where the fireworks today. I think there's some things you can say about Kirk Cousins. Obviously, the one interception that he threw in the direction of Justin Jefferson was pretty ugly, in my opinion. That was the one I think that should have been a pick six, if I'm remembering correctly. But Gary Kubiak did a much better job in this game, better than the first 2 games, at just getting the ball in the hands of his playmakers. Like we said to open up the show, Delvin Cook had a career day. He ran for 181 yards and 1 touchdown, averaging 8.2 yards per carry. If you were to tell me before this game that Delvin Cook would have had those numbers, I would have said that the Vikings would have won this football game. And it was one of those games where I hate to point fingers or put the blame on any one player, but if Dan Bailey makes that field goal, that was one of the weirdest stretches of plays. We had Rashad Hill had a false start, and then they jumped off sides and blocked the kick, and it was almost like they froze him without even using a timeout, which was – it kind of sucks for Dan Bailey just being in that situation. You get mentally ready for a kicker. I mean, the kicking game is such a mental game, and then you go out there and there's 2 plays and you're just sitting around a little bit. I think that had something to do with it. So that was frustrating. But right there, if you make that field goal, this game could turn out 33-31. But it's hard to point the finger at like any one play. There were several areas where this game just kind of slipped through the cracks, if you will. But I just want to have my closing thoughts on a guy, because I vented last week about this. I talked about this. I tweeted about this. I wrote about this. Anywhere you can find Vikings content that involves Jack Day, I was plugging that Justin Jefferson needs to get the ball in his hands more frequently. They did exactly that. Kirk Cousins targeted him 9 times today. He had 7 catches for 175 yards and a great-looking gritty when he ran into the end zone. That was pretty awesome. It was fun seeing Thielen score. I think that's what they call it. They call it the gritty. That's what it was. Something. There's so many stories on it from his time at LSU, and now he's bringing it with him to the NFL. Is that what funny.
Them young whippersnappers are doing nowadays?
Yeah, the gritty. But just my closing thoughts here. I know earlier this week or last week I was talking about how that Stephon Diggs trade had played out. Obviously, Buffalo hasn't lost yet, but Stephon Diggs was leading the NFL in receiving leading into this week, and Justin Jefferson had only had 5 catches on the season. Now, through 3 games to start a season in the Vikings jersey, Justin Jefferson has 245 yards, beating out Randy Moss, who had 221 yards. That's my final thoughts. I'm just going to leave that out there. Justin Jefferson surpassed a statistical category that the young Randy Moss set for this Vikings team.
Yeah, I was like, I hoot and I holler a lot whenever I'm watching the Vikings. A lot of the times I go over the top. Week 1, when Cousins was scrambling a lot, I was like, is that Lamar Jackson or is that Kirk Cousins? I'm going off. And I like to be goofy and we all joke around, but I was legitimately like getting hyped today because it was like every ball that went Justin Jefferson's way, he was catching, making a guy miss, getting a little bit of yak, going down. It was like 10 yards. He'd catch a screen and go for 7 yards. And then that 71-yard or 75-yard, whatever it was, touchdown. he made two guys miss on that play and then did the goodie into the end zone or whatever it's called. And I was going nuts over it. I'm a big fan of Justin Jefferson. I wasn't, by the way. We talked about that today, how I think I said, a faux little world that rhymes with truck whenever we drafted him. And I was pretty upset about that. But, man, he looked good today. And like you said, surpassing any time you surpass Randy Moss in anything. And I will say for Jack, because I know you're not saying he's going to be Randy Moss, but like that's impressive that he was able to do that. And a huge game today definitely helps him make up some lost time from an offense that didn't seem to be wanting to get him the ball. But I think we saw, like, this week kind of proves Thielen does need another guy. Like, I don't think Thielen can just dominate the league as the only receiver on a team in the way that, like DeAndre Hopkins can, in a way that some of these top-tier receivers can. And I still think Thielen is very elite at what he does. I still think he's great. But I think maybe it's not even Thielen himself, but it's just this Vikings offense. We need two guys that can step up. And I think last week we tried to let that second guy be Irv Smith Jr., and I think he kind of dropped the ball a little bit. I'm still high on Irv Smith Jr., don't get me wrong. I just think he literally and metaphorically dropped the ball last week. So this week we give Jefferson his chance, and man, did he cash in on it. I mean, he looked really good. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I've heard some people talking about how Harrison Smith is kind of getting not actually called out by name, but I guess Zimmer is saying stuff about how, the safeties are trying to do too much, and there's a lot to fix on the defensive side of the ball, and I think a lot of it will be fixed whenever Yannick Ngakoue moves over to the right side. Danielle Hunter takes his rightful place as the left defensive end for the Vikings, and we let these boys eat. Because then all of a sudden Tannehill's not getting as much time to throw, these receivers aren't getting as deep, and I think we can see the defense come back to foam a little bit and help out this young secondary. Jeff Gladney, by the way, I know he had one blown coverage where it looked kind of bad, but I remember 2 or 3 plays that he made where I was like, hey, we drafted this guy in the first round. Like, he should be playing a lot more. And we would have won. This is the final talking point I'll say about it. Holton Hill. I'm sorry, I have a back scratcher and I talk with it sometimes, so I'm going to set it down because that looks dumb. But Holton Hill catches that ball at the end of the game. Vikings win pretty easily. He had a chance to kind of make up for 3 really bad games and literally and metaphorically dropped the ball. So was disappointed to see him lose. But I think if the Vikings lost all 3 games this season in this way, well, yeah, the defense doesn't look great, but the offense looks good, or, vice versa. Like, there would be a lot more hope than there is after 2 embarrassing starts and then a really competitive, great game this Sunday. But let's talk about game balls. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there before we move on?
No, it's funny. I was just looking at the stat sheet as well, and I was reading through names, and I, right before you said that, I had one of those things go off, just like a light bulb, where I was like, Holton Hill could have had a pick 6 to win that game, and we didn't even discuss that. And then you brought it up. So
I was definitely going to bring it up.
I don't have anything, but kind of going off a tangent from what you were saying. I know there's been people going back and forth a little bit on Gladney, but I've had a lot of fun watching him. He's one of those guys. He reminds me of. I mean, he's a cornerback that's willing to come down and punch you in the mouth, and I absolutely love that. He's a rookie cornerback. He's gonna make mistakes. He's gonna get burnt, and I mean, he flat out he got burnt today, but I think having him work with Zimmer for the remainder of the season will only benefit him. It'll benefit Dantzler. It'll benefit all of these younger guys. So I'm still very optimistic for the future. Maybe not the 2020 season, but I'm really optimistic about the state of this Vikings defense for 4 years to come.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I am very thrilled for you to get to brag on yourself and you to get to, humble brag a little bit, because I'm 99% sure you said Justin Jefferson's name about 1,300 times last week. And I'm going to let you go first and talk about who you're giving your game ball to. Obviously, we don't do the game balls in the post-game show. We don't each get offense and defense. We just kind of talk about who we thought had a good game. And Jack, I think I know who you're going to pick.
Yeah, I think, Dalvin Cook is also, he was up there, and I haven't really heard much. He kind of went off the field with some sort of leg injury, which is kind of worrisome, obviously, moving forward, because he's a focal point, huge piece to this offense. So, but I have to give the ball to the kid. You got to give it to Justin Jefferson. I mean, after coming in as a rookie, this guy came in, and he did not lose a football game last year. He had Joe Burrow making moves in the pocket for him, and he was getting open down the field. I mean, he finished with, it was an absurd amount. He had like 18 touchdowns last year and like 1,400 yards, something crazy like that. It was, I had the stat line memorized when I was writing about him when we drafted him, but I don't have it memorized anymore, so don't quote me on that. But, yeah, game ball on the offensive side of the ball, 100% going to Justin Jefferson and his gritty into the end zone. I thought that was awesome. I mean, even before that touchdown, I was loving him getting his hands on the ball because every time it seemed like he caught the ball, it was for a first down. He'd shake and bake and make somebody miss. We got to see how good his hands are. We got to see his speed. We even got to see his contested catch ability. He had a nice catch where he went up and got it, and then obviously the yak as well. I mean, he's clearly a yak machine, and I'm not ready to come out and say, hey, look, we replaced Stephon Diggs, but Justin Jefferson just had 175 receiving yards. And, I mean, granted, Stephon Diggs is a very good wide receiver, so I don't think it's fair to put him in that category. I think he's on the up and he's rising now. And after you ball out in an actual game like this, it's going to be impossible. I mean, don't quote me on this, but if there's somehow some way that Justin Jefferson is not wide receiver 2 on this team moving forward, I am going to be very pissed off, and I'm just going to say that now and leave that out there. But I think he earned that today. He went out and he balled out, so he gets my game ball on the offensive side of the ball. Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, there's not a ton of plays that stick out to me. Like I said, Eric Kendricks had the nice one pass breakup, and he also led the team with 10 tackles, and I think he had a really, really heavy task of trying to just operate the middle and try to stop Derrick Henry with the amount of push that we've been getting, and that's not an easy task. And I think, granted, he still ran for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, I still think Eric Kendricks deserves some love in this one, and I think that's who I'm going to lean towards. I know Harrison Smith had a nice play as well, and I think the safety position, the positions that we're so used to performed well in this game. Anthony Harris had a good game as well, and those are the 3 leaders and tackles on the team as well. I'm looking at the stat sheet right now, but I think we saw a really good game out of both the safety position and then out of Eric Kendricks, so it's hard for me to – I mean, there wasn't anything spectacular where it was like, hey, there's a pick 6 or a fumble. I mean, I'm leaving Unique Ngakoue, and I'm sorry, I'm probably taking whoever you're going to talk about as well. I'm just trying to it's kind of hard to reflect on games without actually going back and watching the tape a little bit, but I think that Eric Kendricks is who I'm giving my game ball to just because I had the most fun watching him. And I saw Nick Olson tweeted out a couple weeks ago that he actually was missing some gaps, so I've been trying to keep a little bit more of an eye on him throughout the game, and I think Eric Kendricks played really well today, so I'm going to give him my game ball on defense.
Yeah, so since you went with Jefferson, I do like to pick different guys. So I'll go with Cook, who did also have a career day, but kind of got outshined because Justin Jefferson is the new hot item in town. But Cook had a career day, $181 on the ground, 1 touchdown or 2?
I can confirm that with you. Give me 1 second. 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I thought just 1, but I couldn't remember, and I wanted to be sure. But 1 touchdown for Cook. I mean, he had a really good day today. Like you said, 8 yards a pop. That's just absolutely insane. But switching over to the defensive side of the ball, I don't remember who I probably picked like Eric Kendricks for my game ball last week because I knew that we were going to have to stop this run game. And little did I know there was a hero on this defense who helped as good as you can whenever you're the Vikings defense. Like, Yannick Ngakoue, I thought looked amazing against the run today, and that was the huge big knock on him whenever we got him in that trade was, he's a pass rusher. He doesn't like to stop the run, though. And I saw him many times wrap Derrick Henry up in the backfield, take him down by himself, and then get hyped about it. Now, he did get the strip sack. He did start dancing a little early. My dad has a saying, anytime a guy dances after a sack, especially this time of year, he'll be like, you're 0-2. Like, come on. Like, let's win a game and then we can dance. Like, so a little disappointed to see that, but, he's just out there having fun, and I think that's what we need to see some of these guys do is go out there and play their game and have fun because there's a lot of talent on this team. So Yannick Ngakoue is getting my game ball this week because of the strip sack, and also I think he made some impressive plays in the run. And that's not why we bought him here. We bought him here to strip sack guys and do dances, not to have to tackle Derrick Henry one-on-one. But he did that. He stepped up, and I hope we see him a lot more. I really like him. I didn't watch him play in Jacksonville a whole lot. I really like Yannick Ngakoue.
Yeah, I hope there's a way that they can find a way to pay him and keep him here because, I mean, like I said, this is all getting set up again for 2021, but you get Danielle Hunter back on that field, and you have those two pass rushing, and you have Michael Pierce in the middle, and then you maybe at some point get a draft pick. Maybe Lynch pans out. Maybe one of these guys pan out, and you can throw them in that 3 technique spot. You could be looking at a very dominant defensive line for years to come. And then obviously you have some good linebackers. You have some very good pieces on all 3 phases of that defense. And I think we've seen it throughout this year. Granted, Cousins has struggled. We haven't even really talked much about this, but he's already at that 6 interception mark through 3 games, which he totaled 6 interceptions in all of 2019. I know you can kind of go back and forth on this, but the Vikings are still clearly in the running for one of the top 2, top 3 quarterbacks. I don't know if I'm going to be in love with the decision if they end up having a chance at the 3rd quarterback and they take a chance on a guy like Trey Lance. I haven't done enough research on him, but if they're able to get those last 2, I think it's a no-brainer pick because they are franchise-changing quarterbacks potentially, and the Vikings have not been able to find that. I think Kirk Cousins still has the potential to lead this team down the road to a deep playoff run, maybe a Super Bowl at some point, but he hasn't looked as good as we've even in 2018, 2019, granted, not the offensive line. He's had more time than people are giving credit to this offensive line, but man, those 2 guard positions today just did not look good. I know the show is a huge fan of Drew Samia, but we're not seeing what we wanted to see out of him. I guess we can say we were a show before he was put on the field, and I mean, there's been plays where he's just flat up getting ran over. So I don't know what the Vikings' plans are moving forward. I think at some point maybe, I don't know if Elflein's not done for the year, I don't think. But I know Josh Klein is still sitting out there as a free agent. I think someone like that, even you put Jones in there and give him a chance, I think we have other options that would immediately make that offensive line better. So
if we kick up, let's say Houston comes in. Houston's also looking for their first victory next week. Tune into the show on Thursday morning to listen to us break down that game, Mo. But if we lose to Houston and we're 0-4, do we think about just throwing Cleveland out there and kicking Reef in to guard and kind of like let's see what the experiment is?
I think you almost have to at this point, just because I mean, you use a 2nd-round pick on him. You still don't know what you're going to get out of the guy, but why not get him some reps? If you're 0-4 with our schedule, I mean, we are in dead last in the NFC North now. The Detroit Lions just beat the Arizona Cardinals today.
Did they really?
The Bears are 3-0 after some Nick Foles magic, which is just great. I'm sure Vikings fans love to hear that Nick Foles is out there again and he's going to be a burden for this team moving forward. And then the Packers play the Packers either tonight or on Monday night. I think it's tonight they play on Sunday Night Football, which is actually just starting now. But just final thoughts. It's a frustrating, but yet again, it's a game where I think there's some optimism that you can take from it, although we've said that we're done being optimistic on this show. But I do think there are some really bright spots that shine today, and there is a bright future for this Minnesota Vikings team.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that we've got some guys like Ezra Cleveland sitting on the bench right now who we knew we were taking. We were going to let them sit for a year. They were going to come in. Hopefully we get Brian O'Neill 2.0. He's looked really good this year. He's been a bright spot that, doesn't get a lot of attention because he's an offensive lineman. But
Riley Reef has looked really good as well.
Yeah, Reef has looked good. There was a play today where I remember thinking, come on, Reef, you got to be better than that. But, other than that, haven't really heard his name a lot. Cousins is getting blown up through the middle. There's not a lot he can do, but I even texted you, and I was like, look, man, I'm out on Cousins. I tried to be a Cousins guy. I lasted 2 weeks, and then I just immediately, it's just instinct at this point to just, watch him throw these terrible interceptions and be like, what in the hell was that? And I'm ready. This is probably one of the final things that I'll talk about, and then I'll let you plug the sponsor. Oh, I pulled out the stupid thing again. Plug the sponsor that's behind me, and then we can kind of get out of here. But BYU quarterback Zach Wilson, he's my guy this year. He's the last year I called Joe Burrow, so I'm kind of Great Bambino calling my shot. I'm going with Zach Wilson. He looked really good last night. Also, one more thing. I found a Tavarius Jackson jersey last night at my parents' house, and I had to get it because, he tragically passed away over the summer, of course, and I loved T-Jack, so, I had to go. I wanted to show it off.
So when this was back, I was younger, obviously, when he was a rookie and when they were still down in Mankato. Fun story. I just remember watching him, and there was so much buzz around him. And going down and seeing that ball zip off his hands, he had an absolute cannon of an arm, and he was fun to watch. Rest in peace, obviously. But yeah, I can try to plug the Twitters, which I normally don't do. But
shoot! If you want me to do that, I can do that.
Yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead, and then I can plug the sponsor, and I can get us out of here.
All right, sounds good, man. Go ahead and follow the show. Thank you for staying with us throughout this, whole excursion. It's going to be a fun season, even though we're 0-3. Follow the show on Twitter at LTB Vikings. One more time, that is at LTB Vikings. Follow myself on Twitter at jhawthorne16. One more time, at jhawthorne16. No E on Hawthorne, by the way. And then follow my man Jack on Twitter at Jack_H_day. One more time, Jack_H, as in, how are we just now realizing Justin Jefferson is this good? _day. And with that, Jack, tell them how they can save 20% off at manscaped.com.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I guess. It depends on, if you're a girl looking for a gift for your boyfriend or husband, or just guys looking for a new trimmer in general, head over to manscaped.com and you can get 20% off if you use the code LTB. Or no, it's load the box, correct? Just load the box.
Yeah,
Sorry,
capital L, capital B.
Getting the Twitter handle. See, I'm bad at plugging this stuff, man. I was getting it mixed up with the Twitter. But go over to manscaped.com. Use code LOADTHEBOX. Promotions officially start this week in October 1st, but we're plugging in a little bit early. So if you're watching the show, if you're a fan of the show, head over to the site. Check them out. They have some really cool stuff. So make sure to check them out. And then just kind of final thoughts from today. Obviously, like I said, it was kind of one of those games where the Vikings were in it. If a field goal was made, it could have been a different outcome, but they're still in the running for a quarterback. I think that's going to – the more losses that this team gets, I think that's kind of going to be the talks of town. Obviously, there's going to be people – it's always going to fall on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins if we can't start winning football games, and I think it's the burden that comes with playing the quarterback position. And I think you're starting to see – a little bit of frustration in Kirk Cousins, but I still fully believe that what's going to happen is we're going to draft a quarterback and we might end up being set up for the future, but then we're going to end up watching Kirk Cousins go to San Francisco, go to a team that has all the pieces around him, and it finally gives him that edge that he needs. And we're going to be watching Kirk Cousins hoist the Lombardi Trophy before the Vikings, and then everyone's going to be like, wow, how dumb was I? Because I still think Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback, and he has that potential to go out and do that, which obviously he's not playing that football right now, so it's tough to see. It's tough to be 0-3, but like I said, there still is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's so many injuries across the NFL, and the injury bug has really hit the Vikings locker room, obviously, but there's a lot of young guys getting chances, which is only going to make us better. And when we come back in 2021, hopefully have a full U.S. Bank Stadium, which I think would have played a huge factor in today's game as well. So there's some bright spots on this Vikings football team, and I just want to obviously end that with saying Justin Jefferson was the brightest note of the day, and I think this kid is going to ball out for many years to come in a Vikings jersey. So we do have some things to look forward to, and with that, I'll leave you with the Skol.